Hello, welcome back to the Cricket Nerds. Thanks again for tuning in to watch us talk about cricket because we love to do it. I'm joined with James today. We don't have Benji, unfortunately, but I'm sure he'll be in the next one. So all those Benji fans out there, Ken Singh in particular,
Yeah, big shout out.
yeah, we're looking forward to having Benji back on. Also, thanks for all your support so far. The channel is doing really well, and so if you are new and you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, what are you playing at? Just do it. It's free. It's not hard, and you get to listen to us talk about the best sport in the world. So there we go. And make sure you like as well. That'll be useful. So let's get into the cricket. That's why you've clicked on this video, and we're gonna start with the game that's just happened, India versus South Africa, and it was a relatively tense game where the whole time you were thinking this could go either way. Uh, James, do you want to talk about India's batting?
Yeah. It didn't get off to the best start. And I want to say the games that haven't been rained off have been really good in Australia.
Yeah.
The pitches have lent themselves to really, really good games. There's been a bit in it for both. But most of the time it's like 160 tends to be a par score, and that makes for really entertaining T20. So well done, Australian groundsman. And Australian weather, try better next time. But that being said, yeah, no, I thought India's batting, that top order collapse. Can you call it a collapse if they were never up in the first place?
Maybe.
But
I don't know.
they got off to a pretty rough start. I think there was a maiden over, first over from Wayne Parnell, who I thought bowled really well. And then Lungi Ngidi, he's a bit of a magician, isn't he? I can remember when I first saw Lungi Ngidi, probably in the IPL. I remember thinking, wow, this guy, like South Africa, just keep on producing these amazing paces. But he never really, he wasn't hitting the upper echelons of speed that we saw from Rabada and Nortje, and even like Chris Morris at the time.
Yeah.
So I really like that he's crafted himself this niche where he's a fast bowler, but more fast medium. But he uses these little techniques, lots of changes of pace, lots of nibbles off the seam, and he makes for a very skilled bowler. And he took some very big wickets.
Yeah.
You know, Sharma, Rahul, Kohli, and Pandya. That's a good day out.
Yeah, it's very good.
That's a story at the pub.
Yeah, and he's the sort of South African bowler who just flies under the radar and gets the job done, which is kind of like what Jacques Kallis did when he was playing, because you had the big bowlers in like Steyn and Tini, to name just a few, Alan Donald, Morkel, yeah, and then Jacques Kallis was kind of just the backup bowler who took a lot of wickets and just did the job. And Ungidi's kind of similar to that. And I'm quite sad that Benji's not on this podcast because his wicket to Care Rahul was a beautiful test match wicket, just nicked to first slip. Care Rahul playing a test match innings. So they decide to put in the slip and he just edges it to him. And it's just skillful bowling. And like you say, he's found his niche, I think. There wasn't much to write home about for India because the only player who did anything was Suryakumar Yadav. He was just kind of stood by himself, batting like the beast he's been the last however long for India, and yet everyone else just couldn't seem to do anything. And I think South Africa found it hard to bowl at him because he was batting so well.
He's a different beast, isn't he? Because and we've seen this happen a few times now where everybody else will really struggle with the batting. Like fundamentally, this game was 133 plays 137, and 39.4 overs were bowled.
Yeah,
nobody was finding it easy, but Suryakumar Yadav was absolutely flying. 68 at strike rate of 170. That's amazing, and it does just show what a rich vein of form he's in, and what a find for India so late in his career. Like, what is he, 32 now?
Yeah, so, something like that. It's crazy.
He's only started playing. I mean, do you remember the first shot he ever played in international cricket was against Jofra Archer? And it was just like this casual flick, like helicopter flick off the pads over fine leg off Jofra Archer.
Yeah.
I think that was his first ball, and I was like, "What just happened?"
Well, I think with Sky he's just his way of batting was what you almost needed. Like, from playing just our level of cricket, that when the runs aren't coming and wickets are falling, you think, oh, I need to build an innings, and you get to 5 off 10, and then you get out playing a stupid shot. And that kind of was like India's innings. Like you've got players like Hardik Pandya, Dinesh Karthik, Ashwin even, and they weren't trying to score. They were looking to get in and then score. Whereas Sky, like you said, he's the sort of person who'll just go from ball one. He doesn't care. And it's almost that attacking style of play was probably what India needed from a few other players. Maybe they were missing Rishabh Pant this game. Who knows? Because he's kind of gone off my radar a bit.
Yeah, and there's
I
that
was
opener
thinking
spot, like if you're looking at KL Rahul's form.
True. Should we go into South Africa's innings? Because it was another collapse at the start of the innings with 3 quick wickets going. And it looked like South Africa were in trouble until it was just a very well played innings from both Markram and David Miller.
Yeah, and obviously, this is going to happen. I need to give a shout out to my boy Ashti, because he took out the 2 form players really early in the match. Quinton de Kock, who got 60 odd in the last game, and was going really well, looking great. And Riley Rousseau, coming off the back of one of the greatest tons that T20's ever seen. Arshdeep Singh gets them both, and that's huge wickets. Temba, we'll come on to that in a minute.
He did hit a 6, to be fair to him.
Well done, Temba. But your strike rate's still 66, lad.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. It was a very rough start, but I thought Markram played really well. Even if Kohli did drop a sitter. But we'll forget about that, because Kohli is amazing, and I forgive him like before he even dropped it and straight away after. But yeah, David Miller, like, it was nice to see him conduct that innings that he did, because he's so good. And isn't he just the perfect finisher? Like,
you're great.
He paced it exactly right for what the innings needed, because like 130, chasing 133, I feel like is harder to chase than 150.
Definitely. They're the sort of games where if you lose 3 early ones, it's like, oh dear, we've done a bad thing here. And it's very similar to Sri Lanka, right? They played really well against New Zealand in terms of their bowling until Glenn Phillips did ridiculous stuff. And then it was literally just a case of, we've lost early wickets, we're never going to get to New Zealand's total. Whereas South Africa, they had David Miller, who is a very experienced white ball player. He started for South Africa in about 2010, so he's been playing international cricket for 12 years, not to mention the wealth of franchise experience he's got. And to have that player in your middle order when you're struggling and you need a small target, that's the sort of player you need. And I think that's why England have someone like Ben Stokes in the middle order for these sorts of games. So having these experienced players in the middle order to take you home in these tight chases, South Africa have that. And that's why they were able to win quite comfortably, even though they only gave themselves 2 balls left. That's quite comfortable. And I think given that partnership, it was plain sailing, really.
And I just want to say one more thing about the bowlers. Like India's bowlers, because they fought valiantly, like trying to defend 130. You can only do so much. Ravi Ashwin was a little bit expensive, but the person I want to pick out is Mohammad Shami, because yet again, after coming off no cricket for so long, he's just come straight back into it and be like, yeah, I should have been here the whole time.
Yeah.
Who's this Bumrah guy? You don't need him. Because I'll bowl, 4 overs, and I think he did 2 up top and a couple of death overs, 3.25 and over.
Yeah,
he's got the coolest head. And again, he's somebody like Curran in a way. This is a huge insult to Shami, Shami's bowling ability. But like, I think Shami's only like 5'8" 5'8" or 5'9". Like he's really
Yeah,
not
not
a
that
tall
tall. No.
guy, and yet he bowls right arm fast, and he just doesn't go for runs.
No.
And I think it's because he's got that metronomic line and length. And I think he must be quicker than you expect him to be.
Yeah.
Because you just see this little fella charging in, and you're like, oh, you're all right, you're right there,
Yeah.
little buddy. And then suddenly it's past you, and you've nicked off.
Yeah. Well,
So
when
yeah,
you see these players in the 2020 teams that are very experienced test match players, just makes you think, surely James Anderson and Stuart Broad would be doing bits in the 2020 setup for England.
you know
Surely.
what? Jimmy Anderson in the power play. Come on,
Why not? Come on.
a bit of hooping.
if you had to choose James Anderson or David Willey, it doesn't matter which cricket game you're playing, you pick James Anderson. The only reason he's not in because he doesn't want to play 2020 cricket. Or maybe he does. Maybe it's just the ECB are just trying to protect him. I don't know.
Jimmy
But
Anderson for RCB 2023. That's my prediction.
that'll be sick. But when James Anderson is playing for the England Legends at the grand old age of 65, the year after he's retired, it'll they'll be playing 2020s and it'll be awesome. So yeah. Anyway, should we move on? Because South Africa beating India has made life really difficult for Pakistan. Because South Africa are probably going to win at least one of their last two games. I think they're playing. I can't remember if it's the Netherlands, maybe, as one of their last two games. So they'll easily win that, I think. And India, in order for Pakistan to go through, they need India to lose to Bangladesh, which is, I don't think that's going to happen either. So I think Pakistan are going to struggle to qualify now, even though they comprehensively beat the Netherlands. And it was a bit of a return to form from Shaheen Shah Afridi, who, despite all the big things that we've been saying about him, only got his first wicket of the tournament today.
Yeah, and I think he said himself that he's still kind of shaking off the rust because he's been out for a while, injured.
Yeah.
And yeah, it did kind of show. You could tell he just wasn't quite on it. He was bowling some amazing balls because he's an incredible cricketer.
Yeah.
But yeah, he was just slightly off the pace. But you're absolutely right. He ripped it up. I thought Naseem Shah was outstanding again. And Harris Ralph, like those three, the whole bowling attack is ridiculous.
All of them, yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
any of them surely just walk into a side of world cricket. Like,
Yeah.
Pakistan's bowling is insane. And it meant that Pakistan don't have to worry about their middle order. Oh, can our middle order do it? They're chasing 92.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's not that difficult. And they were brilliant. Pakistan just,
I would like to give a shout out to Mohammad Wasim because he flies under the radar. When you compare Harris Ralph, Shaheen Shah Afridi, and Naseem Shah, amongst others, with Mohammad Wasim, you think, well, who is this Mohammad Wasim? But he's since arriving in Australia, he's been like the Lungi Ngidi of Pakistan.
I was going to say, he's the Ngidi. He's the
plus he can bat as well. Like he's a decent bat, although we've not seen it in international cricket for him. He's a decent lower order bat who can swing at a few sixes. So I think he's doing really well for Pakistan, and he's a very good prospect for them. But it was just hard for the Netherlands, really. They struggled against the pace. I think that's the big thing for the Netherlands is they struggle when it's quick bowling on bouncy pitches. Baz de Leader, I hope he's all right because he had to retire hurt after being hit on the head. Yeah. So I don't know if there's concussion. We'll find out more later. But yeah, it was just too good from Pakistan, and Pakistan's batsmen aren't gonna struggle in scoring 92 runs. And yeah, it was, although Babar Azam was run out in like a terrible way. It was a bit of an embarrassment, really. The rest of the innings was pretty comfortable. So yeah.
Should we move on yet again
Yeah.
to what was actually a really good game?
This was my favorite game.
Yeah. Bangladesh, Zimbabwe, which I think Zimbabwe kind of they've won my heart after the last match. But I think what a game. just absolutely outstanding. What were your main takeaways from this match?
Well, going into the game, I was thinking this harks back to before Zimbabwe stopped playing Test cricket. So this is like 2004, 2005, when Bangladesh and Zimbabwe, they were the wooden spoon contenders. So
Mm.
whenever I see them play, I'm always like, this is a little bit of a rivalry going on. And my main thoughts for this game were that Bangladesh seem to have some good batters, but they don't bat quick enough. I think that's
Yeah.
for me, that's their issue. And the players who can strike the ball far, there's only a few of them. And Shakib Al Hassan hasn't been doing that consistently. He should be like the lower, well, the all rounder who should be striking those sixes, providing that impetus in the middle order, kind of like Sky's doing for India.
Mm.
And allowing the likes of Litton Das and Shanto, who played really well in making 71, to bat around him. And so, yeah, I think that's a slight issue for Bangladesh because they should have scored more. I think Zimbabwe bowled okay, but they didn't bowl as well as they did against Pakistan. I think they were slightly sloppier in the field as well. And I thought Zimbabwe were potentially going to win at the halfway stage. I was thinking Sean Williams batting well, Ryan Bill to come. They've got a really good chance of pulling this off. But then in the end, they were just left with a few too many. What were your thoughts on Bangladesh's bowling?
I was it was a mixed bag, I've got to say.
Mm.
I thought, like, you look at Taskin Ahmed and the Fizz, and they were outstanding. Obviously, the standout bowlers for Bangladesh, and Mossadegh Hossain as well, pretty decent. But when you look at Shakib Al Hassan, who yet again is the talisman for Bangladesh, and he's as close to a genuine all rounder in T20 as you're going to get.
Yeah.
Even if he's got probably the worst attitude of any cricketers, he is he's really good usually. But I thought Zimbabwe did a great job of taking him down and really putting pressure back on him, because I think Al Hassan is somebody that he's the one that builds the pressure, and then a lot of the time either players think, well, we've got to take him down, and then he takes the wickets, or he's applied the pressure and then the others take the wickets. So that's kind of usually how the bowling attack goes. But overall, I'd say it was a very good bowling performance and some cool heads at the end to keep just keep taking wickets, and that's the key, isn't it?
Yeah, for me, Taskin Ahmed, going back to him, every time I watch Bangladesh, he impresses me. And I would say that him, alongside Adil Rashid, in my opinion, are the two best players to have never got an IPL contract. I feel like Taskin Ahmed, he's a very good opening bowler. He's the sort of bowler who you want because he won't go for many runs and he'll take those early wickets. So yeah, I want RCB to get him. Whether they do, I don't think they will, but there we go. But yeah, it was quite a tense close to the game because Sean Williams was batting really well and he was taking the ball deep, and they needed a 16 off the last over. And the over didn't start very well. Then Mossadegh hit a six. Then Mossadegh was hit for six off Nagarava. I don't know if I can say his name right. And then the last ball was bowled, and Bangladesh were like, yeah, we've won. And they were running around. They're like, we won by 3 runs. Awesome. To find out that it was a no ball. So the Bangladeshi players had to put the stumps that they'd ripped out of the ground back into the ground for them to bowl the last ball again, which was a bit of an anticlimax because it was a dot ball. It was just a swing and a miss. But imagine the scenes if Zimbabwe won. And obviously the Bangladesh celebration after the final ball wasn't as enthusiastic, but it was just funny to watch.
Yeah, and I think everybody, obviously other than Bangladesh, was kind of thinking, "Oh, I really want Zimbabwe to get it now."
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it was again a cool head, and Bangladesh quite clinical this time, got it done. But overall, it has been a pretty disappointing tournament for Bangladesh, and
Yeah.
that's a shame. But
Yeah. Mm.
there's still hope technically for
Yeah.
Bangladesh, so that's something. Right, going on to yesterday's match, which by the time this comes out is probably 2 days ago. We'll
Maybe.
see.
We'll see.
Is New Zealand and was it Sri Lanka? And
Yeah. Yeah.
oh, that was another dominant performance from the Kiwis, but it didn't look like it was going to be for quite a while, did it?
No.
How do you think the start was?
Well, it was shaky. Sri Lanka bowled really well, and they put the pressure on, and it was looking like, especially toward the way stage when they were struggling to go at 6 and over. I was thinking if because I wanted Sri Lanka to win purely for England's chances. I thought if Sri Lanka win, then that will give England a real good shot of getting through. And I was like, oh, this is really good from Sri Lanka because New Zealand have a very good batting lineup. Um, and then they didn't quite keep the pressure on, and that was disappointing because they bowled really well at the start. The pacers did really well, and the commentators were actually saying that Sri Lanka had made a mistake in bowling their spinners. They kind of just went to um, they went to type. They just did what they always do, which is the seamers bowl really tightly at the start, along with Thikshana, and then they bowl Hasaranga and the other spinners throughout the middle overs, and that didn't really lend itself to the conditions of the pitch because if they'd have got out another two batsmen with their pacers who are bowling really well, then in New Zealand would have been a much worse situation, and maybe they would have got Glenn Phillips out, who just he punished the Sri Lankans. He punished their bad fielding. He was dropped a few times, and yeah, it was Glenn Phillips was just it was just an awesome innings. It was great
Yeah,
to
and
watch.
I do think he's a really likable cricketer as well
Yeah,
because he's somebody that hasn't found it easy to get into the sides. He's always been kind of a fringe player,
kind
I've
of like New
thought.
Zealand Johnny Bairstow in a way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, or like, yeah, he reminds me a little bit of Sam Billings, actually.
Okay.
Just somebody that's slightly on the edge, but he's a very
Yeah.
good cricketer.
Yeah.
I'd say Glenn Fix is probably a little bit better.
Yeah.
And
Definitely.
this not kind of showed it because my goodness, he really took his chance and 104 in in the best way. Because when you look at the performance of everybody else, it makes it so much better. Like so many
Just
bragging
dominant.
rights.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the swagger back into the changing room after that must have been
Yeah.
unreal.
Mm.
And yeah, it really it put New Zealand back in the game when you're right, things were looking really ropey for them. Um, yeah, like you say, Sri Lanka's bowlers, I thought they did well overall, but it was just potentially a bit of mismanagement from them, and the shaky fielding really let them down.
Yeah.
What did you think of the Sri Lankan effort to get back into the game?
They weren't allowed to get back into the game because of New Zealand's bowlers. Trent Bolt, he does this to teams sometimes. There have been 3 or 4 occasions, which I saw a stat after the game where there have been 3 or 4 occasions where he's left teams at 3 for 5 or 5 for 3, and Sri Lanka were 5 for 3, and he does it by just getting all the wickets and bowling really tightly, not giving them any opportunity to score. And if there's just that little bit of movement, Trent Bolt is gonna do well. There's a reason he plays for the franchise and wins them tournaments. So yeah, I think it was hard for Sri Lanka because they didn't really know how to approach it. Because once you lose one early, you could think, okay, right, let's just regroup, let's just get through the power play and then assess from there. But it would just nibbling away, getting those edges. And yeah, it was just no hope for Sri Lanka. And there was a little bit of a fight back from Rajapaksa and Shanaka, the captain, throughout the middle overs. They took off Trent Bolt, they brought in the spin and Lockie Ferguson, but it was still hard going. That Kane Williamson, it just knows how to place his field. So yeah, it wasn't easy for Sri Lanka.
Yeah, and it was a shame to see because um, it wasn't close in the end,
No.
and things could have been very different. So
Good.
that's a lesson, isn't it? It goes back to your old saying, drop catches lose matches.
Exactly.
And
Exactly.
it is true because, they wouldn't necessarily have won if they took those catches, but they didn't help them in not losing. The fact that they put Ben Phillips down so many times.
I do want to say that if they had fielded better, then they would have only then New Zealand would looking at, I don't know, 130, maybe 140. And I think the thing with Sri Lanka is, yes, they got bowled out for 100 odd, just over 100, but the reason they were bowled out for such a low total is because when you need 100 off the last 10 overs with 5 wickets in hand, your only option is to really go for it, because you still want to win. So I think if Sri Lanka was, say, setting a total or something and they were in that stage, they would have probably made 120 or 130 and it would have looked slightly different. So yeah, I think it was just a case of the position they'd been put in from Trent Bolt and Tim Southey at the start. So, yeah.
Absolutely. So we'll move on to our favourite section, which is Cricket Nerds Questions.
Oh, yes.
And we're moving on just because every other game was wet, so didn't happen.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, kind of screwed England over. We'll not talk about that.
No.
However, PD writes in with the first Cricket Nerds question, and it's a bit of a doozy, so bear with me. T20 format will turn 20 next year on the 13th of June, 2023. Lovely. Within this span, we've witnessed many great international events, like Brett Lee getting a hat-trick against Zimbabwe on their first encounter. But the Aussies lost at the end. Akila Dhananjaya securing a hat-trick against the Windies, but got thrashed a few overs later for 6 sixes by Pollard. England getting pantsed by the likes of Netherlands at Lords, etc. So far, we can comfortably infer that this format is very unpredictable when comparing matchups or pitting giants against minnows. According to you, what do you think are the factors determining the outcomes of a T20 match, barring a few occasions where the toss was the sole deciding factor? Do you think well-built teams get complacent against weaker ones? Do you think the pressure gets immensely high when chasing or defending a total within the 20 overs? I personally believe it's the pressure because I never enjoyed bowling in T20s. I've always enjoyed watching it. I think you might be onto something. I think the pressure is probably the key factor because one of the things that sets T20 apart is its compacted nature. And that means that you have to take more risks, but you're more likely to get away with risks. So you don't, I think also, unlike in Test cricket, a lot of the time, you don't have to be like at your best to get a really good score or to do really well. All it takes is bad decisions from the other party. I mean, I say unlike Test cricket, but my favorite example is Dom Bess in India taking what was probably the worst fifer I've ever seen in my life a few years ago, where it was like, it was all half trackers or full tosses. But a lot of T20 bowlers will say the same thing. Like, I could bowl really badly and get a few wickets and go for no runs, or I could be on my line and length all day and get hit for sixes. So, yeah, I think you're right with the pressure. What's your opinion, Zach?
Well, I think it was interesting when you talk about the hat tricks because Jason Holder, he took was it 3-3 or 4-4 against England? And the reason he did that, it wasn't, yes, it was good bowling because he got wickets, but it wasn't like when Malinga got 4-4 against South Africa in a World Cup, and that was insanely good bowling, like unplayable deliveries. It wasn't like that for Jason Holder's wickets. It was just a case that England needed to score runs, so they gave West Indies wickets. And I think that can be the case in 2020 cricket. And also, I would say pressure is massive because sport is all about momentum. Like in football, when you see a team that's got the momentum, you think, oh yeah, a goal's going to be scored. And it's similar with cricket. When a team's got momentum, it's like, well, how are the bowlers going to get back into the match? If a batter's going really well and smacking it all over the place, you could be facing a really large total. And in 2020 cricket, you just don't have the time always to turn the game around or to wrest the momentum away from the opposition. Whereas in test match cricket, you can kind of absorb the pressure for a while. And that's why it's test cricket, being able to absorb that pressure and then change the momentum in your favor. And it's rare for that to happen in 2020. So I agree with you. It's a fickle game. And that's why you see teams like the Netherlands beating England quite comfortably. Teams like Ireland absolutely hammering England. England lost in a one-day match against Scotland not too long ago. So
Yeah.
these things easily happen.
So we'll move on to the next question, which is from K Unofficial, who said, guys, which is your favourite batsman in the current era? That's a really good question. And I want to add a little bit to it and say potentially an all format player,
Okay.
all format batsman, just because, you know, my answer would vary too much otherwise.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say it is Johnny Bairstow. Because I support him so much. Like, he's somebody that's been in and out of so many sides. He keeps on seeming to have to prove himself, and every time he does, I'm so behind him.
Yeah.
He's just so English, which as an England fan is fun to watch. And he's English because he fails a lot of the time as well. But yeah, no, he's very determined, and some of the shots he plays are beautiful. But then after this English summer, for example, you know, you can see when it goes right, it is absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
So for me, Johnny Bairstow, my favorite across all the formats. What about you?
Mine is a bit weird because normally I don't like this cricketer because he plays for Mumbai Indians. Uh, but at the same time, I think he's a really good batsman, and that's Rohit Sharma. Because I think across formats, he dominates. Like you see it in Test match cricket, the way he played in England in those Test matches in 2021 was really good to watch at the top of the order. The way he plays in 2020 and could easily just take the game away in the power play. I think he's been struggling maybe the last year or so, but since he started playing cricket, he's just been really consistent. And I think although Kohli is viewed as the king, I think it would just be quite don't know how to put it. It would just be usual for us to pick Kohli, wouldn't it? He's a great player across all formats, but Rohit Sharma is someone who's kind of been in the shadow of Kohli, but performed really well in all formats.
That's it. That's it for Cricket Nerds questions. Thank you so
Lovely.
much for sending them in. Leave your Cricket Nerds questions down below, and you'll be featured in the next video. So, with that, thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to subscribe. Thank you so much once again for all the amazing support. As of this recording, the Cricket Nerds, there are currently 716 of you, which
Lovely.
that's pretty amazing. So yeah, we're going to keep on going. We're going to keep on producing this premium content. So yeah, stick around and subscribe. It really does help us out. You can follow our social medias. It is at Cricket Nerds Pod in like Instagram and Twitter. We also have a TikTok, a Facebook account, and probably some others. You can
Link tree is there, isn't it?
the link tree is in the description, so just check it out. In that, you will also find where our audio podcasts are stored. So if you're out and about, not able to watch on YouTube, you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor FM, and many more. So thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.